Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to the stream today. Before we dive in, go ahead and like, follow, and subscribe on the platform that you're watching this on right now. Your support helps me keep doing what I love, creating content that inspires, teaches, and entertains. Make sure you turn on your notifications so you never miss when I go live. Let's get into it and have some fun.
All right. So usually I would be starting on time. And usually for these past couple days, you would have seen my guests already hitting before I brought them on. But today, tonight, I guess, is not normal. So he's already on the screen, as you can see. And I guess it is very appropriate to be talking about this right now because we had some technical difficulties. Not we, me. I'm not gonna put that on him. I'm not gonna put that on him. It was me. Murphy's law. Technology is technology. It's just not gonna work when it's gonna work. It's starting to become human. It's gonna work when it's gonna want to work. But you guys, welcome to this is day 3 of the rewind. Right, day 3, day 4. It's day 3. And I'm really excited for this guest to be on. And I got my notes here. So I'm going to just kick it off as I usually kick it off. I'm not going to stray from it. But so you guys are really in for a really good treat. And I've been talking to this person for, God, it's been I feel like it's been months now. But when I personally talk about building a program, whether you're talking about technology or gaming or in esports, I always say we got to talk about this holistically. And I will tell you that getting the equipment, that is the easy part. Don't let anybody fool you with that. That's the easy part. And I will stand on that. But the understanding of the behavior, the mindset, and what we are calling the healthy habits is what determines whether your program is really going to last. And as I explored what the term healthy gaming is, and this person's going to help me kind of like really decipher that and kind of debunk some of those things as I talk about what that looks like, I came across Andrew Kinch, and he's the founder of GameAware, and his work centers on a powerful idea that healthy gaming isn't just about restrictions. It's about understanding, motivation, building skills, and creative environments where players can thrive. And Andrew has spent years working with players, families, schools, and esports programs to help them develop healthier relationships with games. His CARED model, CARED, has become a go-to framework for enhancing performance, promoting emotional regulation, and fostering effective communication surrounding gaming. And what I really like about Andrew's approach, what I love about his approach, it's not about fear. It's about it being grounded in empathy, science, and having real conversations with real players and the community. He's one of the few people that are connecting motivation, the dopamine cycles, and I know he's going to help me debunk that, skill development, and gaming habits in a way that makes sense for everyday life. And when I first saw his work, I said to myself, this is really the bomb.com. Like, really, truly, if you're thinking about starting an esports program, before you buy any single equipment, and I have literally told him this first, like, this is where you need to start looking at his stuff. And I'm going on record right now, and I am actually going to say that I would love to see educators that are in the States where I'm at to connect with this person. You really need to connect with him. And I'm happy to make that connection. So tonight, I'm excited to have on the rewind to talk about these healthy gaming habits and well-being with my guy from Australia, Mr. Andrew Kinch. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm excited to have you here. You already saw my frustrations earlier. I guess it was very appropriate for you to be on here because I had some choice words, obviously not with you. But the irony of us talking about healthy habits and motivation and all these things, I'm almost about to cuss. But but like the fact that just nothing was working, nothing was to my liking. I just had to just restart and do all these things, and in the background I'm sitting here just cussing and fussing because everything was going right these past couple days. And then when you come on, I guess I said, oh no, we're not going to do that today. We're going to have some problems.
No, I'm just
But
here to
dude,
challenge you, man.
you
Here
are
to
here.
challenge the mental.
You are here to challenge the mental because you don't know when I was starting I was saying, breathe, Brad, breathe,
Good.
breathe. It's just tech, breathe. But how appropriate that number one, I'm starting late and it's with you. And also how appropriate that we push this, y'all, behind the scenes. We were going back and forth, and I'm saying it in a healthy way. That Andrew has been so busy talking with schools, talking with organizations about his program, his product. That of course we're in different time zones, different continents, but just making sure that all of this was going to work. We pushed back the time, and it was obviously well worth it because you knew something that I didn't. Something was not going to work, and if we had did this earlier, God knows what was going to happen. But dude, how are you, man? How are you doing?
I'm good, man. It's been an exciting year, but definitely ready for that Christmas break. Tell you what.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I hear that, and I'm really starting to understand what that break means. Even though I'm not in the school space like traditionally, I'm like, man, I do need that rest. But I
Yeah.
want to know before we get into the questions, how
Mhm.
did you get started into this space? Period.
Man. Well, if we're going all the way back, I mean, I was one of many people who struggled with gaming. For me, it was first year university. You know, that's my first little experience moving out on my own. I discovered StarCraft. Later, I discovered Counter Strike, and that led me into some positive spaces with esports as well. But I was certainly, uh, playing for different reasons, which I wasn't aware of at the time, and playing a bit too much. At least not getting my reading and my homework done as well as I should have, at least in that first term of university.
Mhm.
Learned a few things, tried to pass on a few of those things. But later, I moved to Australia. I became a teacher. I worked at the same school for something like 16 or 17 years, about 20 years in education all up before I recently moved on into full time GameAware this year. But a lot of that experience was health and PE teaching, um, lots of traditional sport, and I was a well being coordinator. And so at one point, I
Oh.
realized that there's a bit of an issue. Like there's kids spending a lot at the time. It was WoW, World of Warcraft. There's a couple of kids who are just absolutely smashing World of Warcraft, and I was like, oh, I think I've recognized this. And I was
Mhm.
trying to see if I could do something to help, and then put together something, and then got some other outside sort of mental health agencies to maybe support it a little bit, and then lots of stuff in between, and here we are. It's now something that I'm pretty passionate about, spreading that message and helping, well, helping families first and foremost who are in the trenches work through this, and we've got services that help with that, and helping schools with the educational side.
And no wonder you're in the position that you're in because you never told me that you were a well-being coach. And so the conversations that we've had,
Oh.
you've never told me that. So now I'm like, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
Folks, every person that I've talked to, like I'm not asking them for their resume or anything like that, but like as you hear them have these conversations, you can see like this is why I'm here. These are the credentials of why I'm here. And they're not boasting, they're not bragging, but as you hear them tell their stories, you can see like, oh, that's why you're in the position that you're in. I've done these things. I think you said, correct me if I'm wrong, like you were a PE coach or something like that. Or I know you said teacher first and foremost, but I
Yeah.
think you said you were a PE coach too, or no?
Well, so the coaching side is more recently, like the last 4 or 5 years, which is the
Okay.
esports performance side of things. It's kind of like the evolution. If we've got gamers who are struggling and using gaming to cope, let's say, and they're kind of just surviving, we try to bring them up to that sort of level of balance and making sure that they're involved and engaging in real life as well. But then with the esports players, there's a lot of crossover there. But then we coach them to thrive. And what does that actually look like? I mean, that's a much longer conversation. But esports performance, with a lot of focus on like mindset and whatnot, that's the coaching side of things for
Okay,
me.
got you. So, give us an overview of GameAware. What is it? I mean, I know what it is, but but for people who don't know, what is GameAware?
So I'm usually so selective with the language, especially around terms like gaming addiction, which a lot
Mhm.
of I don't know, conflict around even the term sometimes. But if I was to use addiction really casually, I would say that our purpose is to manage or like help families and gamers manage or prevent gaming addiction first and foremost.
Mhm.
And then because of the way we do that isn't just restrictions. That's not building self-regulation in young people. But because of it takes one to know one is our approach. So everybody's a gamer on the team. We've got psychologists and occupational therapists and speech therapists, and then we've got our primary sort of service, which is just like it's mentoring. So it's like they're all gamers, including the allied health professionals most of the time. And the purpose is to help them re-engage in real life and sort of change that conversation with gaming from gaming or something else into gaming and something else. And then once you have
Got it.
lots of other ways of meeting your needs, you don't need to use gaming as much as you do. And then there's a lot more, like that's quite simplified, but that's the way that we help the families. And then I built resources and whatnot to help schools so that either teachers um, or well-being sort of professionals in the schools can help either a targeted group or a larger group sort of get that message at a bit of a more surface level and supporting the parents as well.
What I like what you said too is that you said esports or gaming in this, and I want to go back to your staff. And I don't know if that this was intentional or not, but you said your staff or the people you work with, they are gamers, but they're also this as well. I'm a psychologist and I also game. I'm this and I also do this. I'm this, but I also do this. So it's an understanding of, to me, that lens of I'm a psychologist. I'm not a psychologist, but I'm a psychologist and I also play games. So I do understand the level of where said client or said person is coming from, because I come from that space. I may not be addicted, and I know we're trying to say these words. We're not trying to push those words out there, but there's a relationship already there. Was that strategic at all? Like, did you need to say, I need to have somebody in psychology that also is a gamer? Was that just, it just happened like that?
No, it's 100% strategic. Like, I mean, I can only assume it's similar in North America. I mean, I'm from Toronto, but I've been here for like 20 years.
Mm,
And it feels very similar to Australia. But here, if a lot of the problem is that the parents didn't play growing up, or they don't play, or they're too loose with things because they did play, but that's a rare situation.
mhm.
Um, but like because they don't know and they don't understand, and the conversations that they have with their kids about like it's time to get off or whatever are often based in a little bit of, it seems like a harsh word, but literally ignorance. They don't understand that if they're playing Valorant and they get pulled out of a mid-rank game or something like that, they're going to affect the other team, the other players on their team and their progression. And in some games, we've got kids getting, or any player getting like banned for a week. I think it was in Counter Strike back in the day. Maybe it's the same
Yeah.
now. If you leave a ranked game, and like that's going to cause a lot of stress for the kid if they're being told to get off the computer right now. I'm going to turn off the Wi-Fi or something like that and come to dinner. Like that's just like even just a bit of information helps a lot. But we go a lot further than that as well. So it stems from um, if a parent doesn't understand, and you can almost think it's a safe bet if they think their kids are addicted, they might send them to a psychologist. But if the psychologist doesn't understand, and the common line is something like, "Have you tried not playing so much?" And it's not effective. It does take one to know one. You got to be able to at least talk the talk, but we prefer to walk the walk. And so if we're gamers ourselves, we'll actually jump in to a session with them or have them stream to us on Discord where we do most of our sessions. We have backups, but if they're going to engage there, they'll engage there.
Mhm.
And if we could ask really key questions about why they play when we're watching them or when we're playing with them. And as soon as you build that rapport, it's amazing. You have access to all sorts of conversations. But if even a psychologist who's got all the skills, if they can't access those skills, then there's always going to be that barrier, and it's just more of an uphill battle. So.
And I like that because like when most, I don't want to pinpoint this on parents. So when I'm not going to say parents, I'm going to say parties. When most parties think the other party is doing too much of the gaming or whatever, if they want to take them to said professional, um, I feel like there's already that restriction or barrier because that professional may not be the gamer or whatever. And it's very healthy. Hey, there goes that word again. It's very refreshing to hear like, okay, I am this person too. Do I have bad habits? We can discuss that later. But I am familiar with being in that space. So I may not be quote addicted or whatever that terminology is within the gaming space, but I've been around the toxicity. I know it. I have friends who are like this. So that's a very excellent person. That I don't think that a lot of said parties, because I don't want to put parents on blast on this. I really don't want to do that. That have that really which that really can really take a look at like if I want to take my child or a said person or whatever to seek professional help, maybe I need to see somebody who's been in this space. So I do like that idea.
Actually borrowed directly because I worked like for a summer at an addiction rehab center doing like health instruction to inpatients. And I noticed immediately that the model they have there was that you don't get somebody who, in terms of the counseling side of things, it's always people who have been through the same things. It's authenticity. So much to the
Yeah,
point that you wouldn't
authenticity.
have an alcoholic counseling the pill addicts. It would be pill addicts with pill addicts and alcoholics counseling alcoholics because they actually understand all the insides and outs of that thing. And so I probably picked something up from there. It just makes sense. Like it doesn't
I love
make
it.
sense that if you're going to have conversations about behavior change and habit change, that it's got to come from their point of view, not the parents' point of view only, right? And so if we can get them to realize why they don't want to play too much, not why everybody else is saying it, but why
Mhm.
they don't want to, that goes a lot further. And then they open their mind to all the other reasons. They're like, oh, that kind of makes
Yeah,
sense. I see how that connects. But
because
as soon
yeah,
as everything's adversarial, it doesn't happen.
because to me, as I see it, when you're going into a session like that, and I'm not an expert, but it's like it's already 3 against 1. It's like, well, there's already the adults against the particular person. So I'm like, well, I'm already guarded because they don't want me to do X anymore. There's nobody that's on my side or sees my point of view. So
Exactly.
I do like that point. Let's get
Yeah.
into the questions here because I loved everything that you're talking about. But we've talked about building that healthy relationship. You talked about the restrictions and all that with gaming and with esports. But actually, can you actually tell me what does it for you in GameAware? What does that actually mean to build a healthy relationship? Debunk some of that stuff for me because I know you were preaching that to me earlier.
Sure. So look, if we're gonna go, if we look at it as a spectrum, you got players, you got people who are passionate, then you have people who are maybe overplaying and it's problematic, and then you've got like pure dysfunction on the disorder or the addiction level, right?
Hmm.
And someone's we're all on a spectrum somewhere, and in this case, that's maybe that's what I'll set it up as for you.
Okay.
Um, and so I still think potentially from my interpretation of stats that I've seen that the majority of gamers are still playing in a healthy way. It's something they do for fun. It's how they hang with their friends. There's a lot of different motivators that I'm sure we'll get into later, but there's lots of good reasons to play video games. It's just if you're using gaming to meet all of those needs and you're not meeting them in real life, there are a few different reasons why that just doesn't add up for the fundamentals of well-being.
Okay.
One being that if you're on there for too long, you're going to start to get dopamine burnout. So essentially, you're going to reduce your ability to feel the pleasure and the reward that you're looking for. It also reduces motivation. It makes you a bit more irritable. Like emotional control goes down. Like this is what happens if you've got dopamine burnout. But just looking at your day, like or your week, if you're playing games every single day and you're playing for 3 or 4 hours after school or something like that, and if you're doing something like that, then there's no time or space to get the other things done that are going to fulfill you.
Hmm.
Probably a good time to just talk about the carrot model, I think, at this point. What do you think?
Almost,
Um,
almost, almost. Hold
Almost.
on,
Okay. All
almost.
right. Because it'll lead into that.
Yeah, it will
But
lead
yeah,
into
look, a
it.
healthy relationship with gaming is that you're not relying on it. You're enjoying it as one of many eggs you have in many baskets. Not all your eggs in one basket.
Okay, and so what does that look like? I said it in gaming, but what does that look like when it comes to esports and wanting to have esports in schools?
Yeah, look, this is an area I'm very interested in. And much like other guests that you've had, I got a chance to listen to your chat with Bubba, which is great. Like I ran my own esports club or gaming club at my school when I was there, and I organized esports teams as well. We were still at a sort of beginner phase of our club and the way it worked. We didn't have a lot of competitive players. Um, I've forgotten my answer. Can you ask the question one more time, please?
It was the same. It was the
Oh,
same. Pretty much the same question. Like, what does the healthy relationship look like in esports, especially
yeah,
when we're trying to put it into schools?
yeah. Look, so when it comes to esports in schools, this is the thing. Look, the way I see it from every aspect, the healthy gaming aspect to the coaching and the performance aspect, I think I see them all as connected. And so you got to understand that even in countries where esports is growing at scholastic level, you're still running into parents and administrators who are very hesitant to support it. At some level, they probably just think they're supporting gaming addiction if they allow any gaming in, because if you touch it at all, it's like a drug and then boom, you're addicted or something like that. Like I don't know
Hmm.
what goes through their minds, but they are the gatekeepers to the future of esports. If you to grow properly, we can't have obstacles like that in the way that don't exist for sports like volleyball or soccer.
Hmm.
Um, and so without changes and changes in perception, the growth of esports it's always going to be limited, right? So
Hmm.
if we've got this great potential, and I think that some of the arguments, other than STEM and careers and all these great arguments that are out there for using esports as a vehicle, for the actual experience of competing,
Hmm.
there's a lot of benefits there. However, I'll, there's a lot of athletes who sorry we've been relying on traditional sports to teach these sort of soft skills, leadership, teamwork, communication, emotional regulation. We rely on sports to do that because it's not often explicitly taught. So it's
Right.
like you're going to learn at some point in life by accident. And then sports have given us some opportunities to do that, or competition. It doesn't have to be sports,
Hmm.
right? And so that's great. But with esports, you've got this extra layer where there are people who are developing really unhealthy relationships with gaming and confusing just playing a game, which in essence is competitive, but not playing in a competition. So you have to almost you make sure that there's competition involved, and I don't mean playing ranked. I mean like an organized, like what the leagues are offering
Right.
for students to build those skills, but then build them explicitly, because the way that a lot of kids will compete in, like an in-game tournament for Rocket League or for Fortnite or something like that, they're not necessarily building those skills properly. There's a lot
Mhm.
of negativity, toxicity between teammates. Like, these are the things that, as a performance coach, I've had to come in and fix at a professional level. Whereas we would be teaching our kids in soccer clubs early on how to do these things much better, because it's been around longer. It's more mature, like traditional sports are more mature.
Mhm.
And so, to be able to access all these great things, they need to be explicitly taught. You need to have a teacher champion that's going to do a great job with that. So, in my opinion, if you've got the healthy gaming lens and you have the esports performance lens, then you're going to help these kids understand like why balance matters, and why the grind is not actually the path to excellence. And that's how it's going to grow safely. And in fact, like, some of the work that I've done with my pro players, we're building something right now with some videos, and it's less of me talking, which is probably a relief to some people, and then more of them. So I'm getting them with the stories they've got of playing, at SI for the world level of Rainbow Six, or at the Esports World Cup for Rocket League or something like that,
Mhm.
and talking about the stories that are exemplars of the concepts that I'm talking about, to improve your mental game and to reduce the amount of hours you might be playing, so that you're actually sharp and not burnt out, or all these different factors. And so if we teach these concepts early in high school or in university programs, then there's less correction at the pro level, because that's where the role modeling is happening.
Yeah.
Kids are watching pro players and streamers and like, oh, all I got to do is play games 10 hours a day and I can be a pro too. Like, at some level, that's still happening.
Mhm.
And they think that. So we have to wipe that out by getting the actual, accounts from pro players and from people who understand, like, that's not actually how you play sustainably.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, if you can role model the health and then like playing with a purpose and get rid of that grind mentality, then I think that parents and administrators will start to buy in, and they'll be like, oh, I see. This is just a non-athletic soccer and football, but truly, right? And we don't have to promote gaming addiction if the meta shifts, where people
Yeah.
start to see that role modeling from the pro level as well.
And here's
That's
the
what I think.
thing. And here's the thing. And of course, you and I have both been in this space. And here's something that's very unique about what esports is. And I know from the parents and the school leaders, when they see that, oh, we're not going to do this because of whatever the reason is, I think they may be picturing that one student, male or female, that is, quote, stereotypically addicted. But I've been in so many spaces and when you bring them in a room or in a tournament, it's very different. Again, not an expert in the sports arena, but like when you're looking at a sports arena, any typical games, any typical game, the audience is more pulled away. But in esports, it feels like to me the audience is engaged and more pulled in with the players and the students, at least scholastic wise, in the spaces that I've been in.
Mm.
I've had parents walk in with, oh my god, this is what it's like. And it doesn't have to be bright and shiny and lights. It could be just in a computer lab room. And when
Yeah.
they see that, oh my god, student, my son Andrew, I've never seen him like this. Look at how he's talking with Bradford. Look at what he's doing. Like, is he coaching so and so? Like, and
Mhm.
everybody's cheering at the back end and all. Like, they are really surprised that student Andrew's son Andrew is acting like this. And I go, yeah. And then they'll pull me aside and go, what can we do to have more of this? Because we didn't know it was like
Yes.
this. And then they go, and I go, and do you know that your grandmother or somebody that is disabled, number one, they can play games too, but the ones who can't make it and really want to support and participate, they can watch from afar and shout out, "Hey, Andrew 123" or whatever your handle is.
Yeah.
Dude, that is awesome, man. They probably can't see you playing, World of Warcraft or not that game, but any other game. But like the fact that these kids know that people are watching on time and communicating is something that's very different than what you would see at a basketball game or a football game. You still get that same feeling, but it's a different feeling when, as a parent, you walk in and you're seeing. I have pictures where like our kids going like, "Yes," like this, and the person going, "Oh my God, my son or my daughter is acting like this. Never done this. Why wasn't this around when I was in school? Or how could we get things started?" So that is where I say like you got to come in and see what your child is actually doing in this space. So I know you want to talk about the cared model. This leads up to that cared model that we have talked about. So especially when we're talking about the barriers with parents and whoever, explain to everybody what your cared model is and how it helps players and parents and educators understand gaming and esports differently. What is that cared model?
Before I do, let me just add something to what you said, which I think is great. So, one of the years, again, I don't know if the resume thing got lost, but I was the commissioner for one of our high school esports leagues here in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a LAN final, and it was a Rocket League game. And it was just like what you said. We had a parent show up and to watch the finals because she just sees him play video games, in his Xbox, and she doesn't understand. But she was invited and she came and had exactly that same kind of reaction and saw her son making friends with kids he wouldn't normally make friends with because he was like some gun basketball player as well, and like making new friends, leading the team as the captain, and all these things. And then he was interviewed in the post game for the stream. Let's not take that and take that for granted for a moment. When does a kid, or even late teens, when does an athlete playing football or basketball get on television? You got to be playing at some extremely high level to be on television. But now with streaming, with esports, that experience, people would lose their minds if they got to selected to be on stream in our leagues. And we're so happy about it. And like that was the best experience for them, is that they felt the extra stakes of like having an audience and playing in front of an audience. And yeah, I just think that is something that esports will always do better than traditional sports, is the ability to have a stream. And then if you have a LAN event, then yes, you can have live people there, and then it'll feel a lot more similar to traditional sports.
But there's even the LAN event, there is just such a close. You guys, I can't describe it. It's just, I mean, we're not talking about the League of Legends. I mean, that's something different. It's still the same thing, but there's such a closeness that you feel where it's like, wow, like you see them on stage, and you're right up on them. I don't know what it's like at the League of Legends, stuff like that, but I don't know.
I have a theory. It's because if you watch a football player, let's say you're a football player and you watch a football player, soccer player, and you see them playing on the field, you're seeing them from a third person perspective, right? You're observing them like you would observe somebody on TV, sure. But when you're watching a League of Legends game or whatever esports game, you can see them face to face, but you also see what they see, which is exactly what you see when you play. And so the relatability is extremely high. Like you're living vicariously through them, through their vision, not just the third person vision. And I think that's one of the reasons why people relate to it so much. It's my opinion anyway. I've seen.
I agree with that. And you know what? You can mentally take those skills that player is doing, like, I'm going to go try that really quickly. I'm going to go share that. Like literally when this tournament is over, I can really literally get my hands on it. Not that you can't do that with football or soccer or whatever. You can still go and do that. But like 30 minutes later, you can go do that. And I've had conversations with the kids where in tournaments, they're like, when they've met new kids for the first time and the tournament is done, been there all day long. They're like, okay,
Yeah.
we're going to get on Discord in about 2 hours and we're going to play again. You're going to play again? Yeah, we're just going to play for fun because we like their skill set of what they did. We want to know how they beat us or how we beat them, and we just want to make a connection. I'm like, dude, like, who does that? Like, you don't do that after a football game and go, you know what? Yeah, we're going to shake your hand. Good job. But are we going to play football right afterwards? No, you're not going to do that. But in game, like, we want to connect more because you got a skill set that we don't have. And we want to continue this conversation because we want to see about if we can even beat you next time or just learn more from you. That's how powerful I feel like it is.
Yeah, the closest thing that you would come up with is if a pro basketball player or whatever was wearing like AI glasses with a camera on it, so you could see through their vision, or GoPro strapped to their head.
Have they done that
to
yet?
to get there, to get their to get their perspectives.
Have they
Yeah,
done that yet? Is that in the works? I haven't even heard of that.
I've seen people try. People did some AR glasses in my sport in beach volleyball to try and do it, but it was a mess. It's too wobbly. It's too difficult to manage. At least in volleyball. Maybe in other sports, a bit different. But
I'm gonna have to look that up.
yeah.
Okay.
Look, so the cared model.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
It's a model of motivation, right? So it applies to gamers specifically, but the first three letters, it's not mine. It's a really well-known intrinsic motivational theory called self-determination theory. And so those are the first three letters of
I studied that. I studied that in school. That's part of my dissertation work.
Look, it's there. It's probably there because it's just so accurate. It's so good. So I've done some playing around with self-determination theory and applied it in a practical way, which I can talk about. But C is for competence, right? So we're all driven to be good at something in our lives.
And let me know if I need to share my screen or if you want to share a screen or anything like that. But
I'll just switch. About it. It's okay.
Okay, go ahead.
So C is for competence, but it's not just a skill or getting good at something. It's also progression and achievement. So I actually did a presentation earlier today, and if we're talking about your Rocket League skills, getting better so that you can now do aerials and now you can do flip resets and all these things, that's great. And that's an example of a drive for competence to spend the time to get better there. But also there are gamers out there who are the 100 percenters that need every single achievement unlocked or Steam, like little rewards or every Easter egg that you can find. And 100 percenters are also competence driven, but it's not necessarily about a skill. It's about like completion and progress. So that's one. So that makes a lot of sense for a lot of video games that require skills for you to achieve the goal or win the game. Definitely applies to esports. A is for autonomy, which is being in control of your choices. So like having agency and volition. Some people might say freedom. Autonomy is really important so that you can potentially see yourself as the captain of your own life, right? And a lot of teenagers are starting to prioritize autonomy in their lives, but aren't quite mature enough for it yet. And that on its own can drive some disconnect with families where, like teenage rebellion or whatever, right? Like that's part of them wanting autonomy even before they're ready for it. But it's part of that development. It's normal. And so in game, if you're seeking autonomy in game, the simplest example would be Minecraft Creative, because it's a sandbox game. You can make whatever you want to make. Creativity is a perfect expression of autonomy, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But there's other games as well that allow for that. I'd look at Zelda Breath of the Wild. You could, if you wanted to, make the choice to go to the boss, like the final end game boss, right at the beginning of the game. You won't succeed, but you could do it if you wanted to. Whereas the complete opposite of a game that's built around autonomy might be a linear rhythm game like Tetris or Stepmania or Guitar Hero, because it's about being perfect and perfect timing and getting a high score and getting like combos and stuff. So there's no choice. You just do exactly what it says. And if you do it as well as you can, then you get a high score. So it's very, very different. So autonomy allows you to have that choice. and be in control of it. And then relatedness is you could get away with just saying it's connection and playing with your friends, but it's more than that. It's related to just mattering to other people. And I think that applies to opponents as well as teammates, as
Okay.
well as casual playing It Takes Two, co-op, chain together, all those things. But just esports in general are lean into relatedness as well. So what we do is we typify gamers based on what they prioritize. So it could be if you prioritize, well, let's just go esports, right? That's what
Yeah,
we're
go
here
ahead.
for. So
Yeah.
esports players are CRA typically, and esports games lean into CRA. They prioritize competence first and mastery to get good enough to compete at the highest level you can.
Okay.
And then relatedness is a second, maybe even a close second. And then autonomy just isn't as important. You know, the creativity, it's not like there's nothing. It's just like the ratios would be very, especially in team-based esports. But like I said, if you were playing 1v1 in an esports game, it's still you matter to someone else. So relatedness is right there. If you were looking at Minecraft creative with the skill of like the deep learning that happens in Minecraft to be able to understand the recipes and everything, then you might be an ACR, where you're doing if you're doing it solo. But if you only do it with your friends, maybe you're an ARC, right? So there's the way that you arrange the letters can really give you insight into why you're playing the games. But there's another level to this, which is if you're not meeting those needs well enough in real life and you're using gaming to fill those needs,
Okay.
then you might be lacking in the ability to access autonomy in your real life if that was your main driver, or competence. So a perfect example of kids we've seen might be somebody who's really struggling at school, right? But man, he's good at Fortnite. And so he's going to lean into whatever the lowest hanging fruit is to feel competence. And so for him, it's Fortnite, right? So you're intrinsically driven to fill these three buckets.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of games, whether the designers knew this or not, are going to be leaning into some arrangement of those motivators. Now, E is for escape. Simple explanation. If you're escaping into the game, into gaming, that's the worst reason to play. And it's usually the presence of certain risk factors or the absence of certain protective factors that lead someone to escape. Off. I turned that off. What is that? And so it's the escape is the like if you're escaping for a short period of time, like it's fine.
Yeah, that's what I was
Right?
gonna ask. Like, I want to escape sometimes. Like, God, I've had a day from hell, and I just want to just like my boy wants to, have one beer. Adult, y'all, adult, wants to have one beer. I mean, I just want to play. I want to escape for an hour and play a game. That's okay, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. But if your primary, so you could also, when I describe escapism, and this could just be semantics, right? It's like
yeah.
life is hard, games are easy. I choose to distract myself from my problems by spending my time in video games. If you've just worked really hard and you need to decompress, that's decompression, that's relaxation. I wouldn't call that escape in the same way, if that makes
Okay.
sense. But either
Okay.
way, even
Okay.
if you were escaping from anxiety, right? Depression or something like that, and it was short term, then that might have been a coping tool that was appropriate for a short period of time. And then you found something that actually helped and move forward. But if you're escaping to distract yourself from your problems for long periods of time, then you have two problems. And it's what we call a dual diagnosis situation. And that's the way it needs to be treated in order to help somebody get out of that loop, right? So like if somebody's playing because they're incredibly anxious and then you remove gaming altogether just with restrictions, then they have to face that anxiety with no coping tool. That can be dangerous.
Mm.
And then if you resolve the anxiety through some good work with a counselor or a psychologist or something like that, or they're finding more purpose or fulfillment in real life, and it's negating all of that. But then they've had these really unhealthy gaming habits. Their life has been built around gaming, and
Mhm.
so you're talking about changing how they live. And so you can't just fix the anxiety. You got to actually fix the practical side of things as well. So it's a dual diagnosis. You got to sort of fight on two fronts to resolve and get into that healthier relationship. So escapism is really important. And it's the one that we'd want to avoid. And again, not decompression and relaxing, but escapism. Okay. And then the last one's design. So design, if CA and R are talking about intrinsic motivators, then design is talking about extrinsic. So things that we're chasing. This is where the mechanics of the game can be compulsive. And we all know certain games that lean into these compulsion mechanics. There's plenty of games on the Roblox platform that are very, very good at this. And if I was to try and be simplistic about it, I would say a game is employing compulsion mechanics if you feel disadvantaged by not spending enough time in the game, like grinding, or if you're not spending enough money on the game. If you feel like everybody else is ahead of you because you're not grinding or spending, it's probably a compulsion mechanic. Or it's just, or even if it's you feel disadvantaged because you want all these unlocks or fancy skins or whatever that you like an heirloom in Apex Legends. Good Lord. I played Apex Legends like a long time. Never earned myself an heirloom in the loot boxes, mainly because I didn't buy them. But like you still earn some, but like for me to earn an heirloom naturally would have taken even more playing than I did. And it's just like it's very difficult, right? So some people really, really want that, and they'll grind or spend money on loot boxes in order to be able to get one. Just as an example, right?
Yeah.
So the design is important because it helps us understand that some games, I put them all on a continuum. Like every game's somewhere on the continuum, and one side is going to be the engagement side, which is leaning into intrinsic motivators. So competence, autonomy, and relatedness. These are good reasons to play. And the other side is leaning into the compulsion mechanics. And games are like all over this, right? So, for example, I would look at a game. A lot of games it blends in. It's part of it. But an interesting example would be like NBA 2K, where the gameplay itself is kind of just pure. It's old school, remodeled every year to just be a cool, well optimized, awesome sports game. However, if you want to compete online, you have to either grind or spend to get the actual players with the packs for the My Team mode that'll actually let you compete. Because if you played against yourself with the same skills and mindset and everything like that, and one of you had lots of good players from the packs like Michael Jordan and Kobe and everybody like that on your team, and then you played against yourself with a weaker team, you're actually going to play better with the better players. And so that's kind of like a pay to win mechanic, and it's pretty compulsive, honestly, to put that in there because you feel disadvantaged if you don't spend money or get lucky and grind. So it has a lot to do with chance based stuff. So that's the cared model. And what we've figured out is if we can educate to understand what your motivators are, and then if you can find competing interests in real life for the same reasons why you're playing those games, then you're going to start to find you have more eggs in more baskets, like I was mentioning before. And then you feel more fulfilled. And if you feel more fulfilled, then you're not as compelled to play.
I want to rewind back something, and this is a question that I didn't have planned. You mentioned NBA 2K, and no slam against NBA 2K, but games like NBA 2K and Madden, where you're talking about, and I don't want to misconstrue your words, like, you get the way you grind and you pay to play. I personally don't, maybe because I haven't read up on it, I don't hear those type of build-ups like you would at Apex Legends or Fortnite or all those things. And I feel like the way you just talked about it is pretty much in that same level. But how come we don't hear it in those terms when you're playing a Madden or an NBA 2K or a FIFA or FIFA, but you hear all of this in the Fortnites and the Call of Duties, and you hear it all in these other games, but you don't hear it as much. And maybe I'm wrong, but how?
You mean like vilified?
I guess that's maybe what I'm looking at. The way you just broke down, the way you're having to do it in NBA 2K and all in the sports games, it's almost the same way in Fortnite and everywhere else. But I don't hear it being talked about as much on that sports side of it. Or maybe I'm wrong. Am I wrong? I don't know.
So there's different levels to it, right? So if you're talking about Fortnite, none of what you get is going to affect your gameplay.
Okay.
Right? Like but I mean, it does though in different ways, because if you drop like I don't know if you ever played PUBG, right? Right around like the OG of the battle royales, but you could
Yeah.
actually drop on clothing and pick up a sock or a beanie instead of a shotgun or something like that, and your game is over pretty quick.
Yeah.
It's obviously they've made all battle royales a lot easier to cope with that sort of that issue. But like the randomness is or the fairness of a battle between players has more to do with did you pick up a higher tier sort of gun or not, but it's really clear which ones are going to be good and which ones aren't.
Okay.
Some games like Call of Duty and even Battlefield, the new Battlefield 6, it's all about the attachments. So you have to grind the weapon stats for a long period of time
Mm-hmm.
to get the right level of attachments so that the gun is more usable in play. Like the gunplay is easier and cleaner. Otherwise, it's unruly and all over the place, and your duels don't feel good, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like they're gatekeeping the best experience through grinding or spending, and a part of that can feel positive because it's like, oh, I'm engaged, I'm really motivated to learn how to use these tools and do this to win. But it also it means that you're spending more time there than you might have otherwise, right?
Mm-hmm.
Time that you could spend on things that'll actually improve your health or help you feel more fulfilled. And if somebody is completely fine and patient and like, it might take me 6 months to grind this weapon, while some people did it in 6 days because they were really compulsive about it.
Mm-hmm.
If you're the one that's happy to wait 6 months, there's no issue. Like, you don't a game design that's compulsive does not mean you're going to be addicted to it. It just
Right.
depends on the individual now, right?
Right.
And so like the difference with NBA, which again, if you play like couch mode with your family, is absolutely pure,
Yeah.
totally on the
Oh
engaging
yeah.
side. Then it's the issue is that it actually affects your experience of the game unless you are lucky enough to have the best players from the decks that you buy or earn. And so I've had competitive players, because the league that I was helping run used to run NBA, and they said that all the competitive players said that they spent upwards of 250 Australian on packs so that their team was good enough to compete when they played other, like, or when they were playing online anyway, maybe not in competition.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so that's it. For all sorts of different reasons, it's just helpful to know which games are leaning into engaging intrinsic motivators versus compulsion mechanics, and just accurately go, okay, well, there's some here, but I'm not, I don't have a problem with it. It's fine. Like
Okay.
the games that I play have those things. It doesn't mean that I'm going to stay away from the game. If I like the game, I like the game, but it does
Right.
mean that I can be smarter about it, right? What worries me for kids, because the compulsion mechanics are way, like, if you're more vulnerable for one reason or another, but definitely if you're younger, compulsion mechanics are really, really motivating for these kids, especially Roblox.
Mm-hmm.
And I see interesting things. I see Roblox. I mean, if I was to typify Roblox a few years back, maybe that opinion would change now. I would say that it was a game for younger kids and that people grow out of it. I see less and less people growing out of it. And I wonder if I'm just wrong about the game, maybe, or sorry, about the platform. And some of the games are a lot more, sophisticated than I think they are.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not sure that's the case. And maybe the kids who are still playing it later in life are just really like they grew up reliant on the compulsion mechanics to motivate them to play, if that makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
I'm chasing a reward all the time. It's about the luckiness and the random chance and all those things and the rewards I get, rather than a very different feeling playing Rocket League and seeing your skills grow and getting the benefits of competition. So I just think that not all games should be treated the same in terms of their value based on the way that they're designed.
Do you think as adults, at least in our generation, we kind of, even as gamers, we kind of see that coming, and we're kind of trained to kind of see that, versus kids where you haven't kind of seen that yet, so you're not saying that you're not mature enough to see that, but like, oh yeah, we see that coming, we're gonna still play it, but we know the limits. Whereas, I'm not gonna say your brain isn't developed yet, but you just haven't been around long enough to know that. Oh yeah, I see what that is.
If if you're an adult gamer, you'll probably recognize it um, better. But if you're not a gamer and you're just an adult, like a parent, if you don't look, most parents have no idea what's happening in Roblox, and so
Right.
we have to do some education so they get it. They when the kids are begging for Robux money or gift cards or whatever for their birthday and all this stuff, like, why are you asking for this? And sometimes they clue in. It's like, wow, this is trying to get my kid to spend a lot of money in the game. And again, a little bit from time to time. So what? Like most of the games are free. So, well, all of the games are free, I think. And so for you to spend some money to offset the fact that you're getting an experience, like that's can be a fair trade. But the way that these platforms make money is through the vulnerable ones who are willing to spend ridiculous amounts of
Amounts of
money
money. Mm-hmm.
or ridiculous amounts of time. And that's where it becomes problematic. Um, it doesn't mean that it is for everybody. So as I said before, with the cared model, if we understand all those motivators, and that helps us understand why some people get quote unquote addicted to video games,
Mm-hmm.
design in itself is not enough to do it. There's always going to be
Okay.
other factors. It's always some combination of all these things.
Mm-hmm.
So unmet needs in real life, how vulnerable they are to compulsion mechanics. Are they escaping? There's a lot of different parts of the conversation. And the good news is that it like our approach to it is kind of the same no matter what. It's like, well, we need to help you feel more fulfilled so you don't need gaming to do it. We need to help you find, better ways to cope so that gaming isn't your coping tool, your chosen way of distracting yourself for everything. I mean, maybe sometimes, but like it's about finding again more balance, because if you're overdoing it, and I think it happens sooner than people think it does in terms of the amount of frequency and duration that you'd play for. But
Mm-hmm.
if you're overdoing it, you start to get dopamine burnout. And so, as I might have said earlier, it's like your ability to feel the pleasure that you're seeking from playing, and your motivation and your emotional control and all these things suffer. And so you kind of, the way I would describe it to gamers is that you're shooting yourself in the foot when you
Mm.
overplay the benefits. And so it's really important to know what that feels like, and maybe some anecdotal number to understand, like, how many hours a week would it take for me to get dopamine burnout? Well, I don't think there's a way to know that. There's so many variables. But if we have at least some excuse me, some form of a number to at least prompt us to look for the symptoms of dopamine burnout, that's probably the best we can do. And if you get in dopamine burnout, then you're not getting what you want out of the video games. So, but most people, when they're dopamine burnt, like when they're burnt out, are going to be seeking the lowest hanging fruit, and so they'll stay on longer and longer, because like, I don't feel satisfied enough yet. I need to end on a win, or I can't end on a loss, or I can't stop because we're winning. There's all sorts of justifications. And so if they don't feel satisfied, then they'll keep going. Whereas
Mm.
maybe the first few times you played, you have a couple games, you had fun, you're like, wow, that was cool. Then you're off to do something else. But later
Right.
it takes 4 hours to get it done.
Gotcha.
And usually it doesn't even get it done, because the only reason, not the only, but a common reason why people actually get off a multiplayer or whatever game might be that they're forced to get off because of parent rules, or it's really late and they're like, oh man, I'm gonna be tired tomorrow, or whatever the
Yeah.
reason is. It does happen a lot that no one's like, I feel good about my games tonight, I'm gonna get off. With these multiplayer. Single player, we had this discussion. Single player is different.
Yeah.
Like you can feel like you achieved something, and then it's like, I'm going to come back to this. It's a little bit
You
different.
can pause. You can go. I'm good. Right. I'm good right here. I can move on for the most part.
Exactly. And I think we talked about the Portal effect as well, right? Like if you're trying to
Yeah.
solve a puzzle and you're burnt out in Portal, you can stay there completely stuck. You come back and you solve the whole thing in like 5 minutes because you're fresh again. So
Yeah.
there are consequences to overplaying, lots of them.
So you mentioned the word motivation and dopamine a lot, and especially in these past couple minutes. And first off, I want you to tell our viewers, like, what exactly, for those who don't know what dopamine is, I want you to define that in your terms, what dopamine is. But we've also talked about dopamine farming. At least you talked about it with me. I want you to describe, as far as gaming and esports is concerned, what is dopamine, and then how does dopamine farming impact players' behaviors, their mood, and their day-to-day motivation. You've kind of led up to that already a little bit.
Sure. Look, I'll preface it by saying I'm not a neuroscientist.
Okay.
When it comes to dopamine, I mean, there's so much out there now that sort of describes it, but
Mhm.
I'm trying to take the most practical view based on everything I've sort of experienced and witnessed, and then obviously read as well. But the most important word that I attribute to dopamine is desire, because it's you get so dopamine gets released from one neuron, and it has to cross the synapse between, so the space between two neurons or brain cells, and then gets caught by a dopamine receptor on the next cell. That's sort of like how you experience it.
Right.
If you overdo it, the receptors sort of fade away. It's like some of them will fade away. So just as much dopamine will try to get across to the next one, but it won't get caught. So that's what leads to this. I don't feel satisfied enough yet, or I need to play longer and longer, and it affects. Like, you might be motivated to chase the rewards you're after because you're like, I want to feel good,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
it also means that doing hard things becomes even harder, right? I'm not going to find pleasure or satisfaction from doing a good job in my homework, for example, which is absolutely something a lot of students do, is like they feel good after doing their homework. So they won't put in the extra effort, or even just walking the dog doesn't feel as satisfying or fun. It's like, oh, whatever, Junior can walk himself or something. And then you don't spend that connection time because it's not the lowest hanging fruit anymore. So um, that the dopamine conversation, in terms of what it looks like, is essentially like, look, I call it redlining, right? So if you're playing too much, there's the consequences sort of spiral. And so if RPMs are typically your revolutions per minute on a car, on a tachometer, then let's just replace that with like rewards per minute. And
Mm-hmm.
so if you've got, if you're playing exciting games, then it's high levels of RPMs. And then if you're overdoing it, you're redlining your RPMs, which causes stress to your engine, essentially. Like, it's not sustainable to redline an engine all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So there's consequences, right? But then essentially, like I said, if you're redlining, and you're shooting yourself in the foot for a few reasons. One, it's not as enjoyable. But if performance matters to you, like if we switch back to the esports stuff and the mental game, and priming somebody for competition, at least at the competitive level, like if you're redlining then, and you've been grinding because you think that's what's going to help you play your best, you can't access your focus nearly as well if you've got dopamine burnout, like, and the motivation, like things feel, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? It just feels difficult
Mm-hmm.
to
Yeah.
engage with the team. Like, if you've got dopamine burnout and you're less, like, if you're more prone to tilting and getting frustrated in game, that
Yeah.
can affect your teammates, and all of a sudden your team dynamic, game and day energy goes down because you couldn't manage yourself, and so it's actually affecting everybody else, right? This is something that
Yeah.
I've definitely had to work on with players that I've worked with. And so, yeah, it affects your ability to just be optimal. And so if you're playing esports, sorry, if you're competing in esports, and the whole point is, the to compete, like, even though we should never focus on the outcome, we should be focusing on the process, but that's a different conversation. If
Mm-hmm.
the outcome that you prefer is winning instead of losing, let's just say we prefer it, you're shooting yourself in the foot for your ability to win because you're now performing in a suboptimal way.
Got you. That's a lot.
Yeah. There's a lot. There's a lot
That's
of
a
different things, man.
that's a lot. How do you explain that though to uh, an educator or a parent? Like, and I know you put it in simple terms, but like, how do you how do you put that across to parents and educators?
What
The
to
the dopamine and the dopamine farming and all that. Like I'm sure that's. I mean, that is part of some of that's deal with motivation, obviously, but like that's something that probably that some people have never heard of. Like, oh, what?
mm,
Like what? Like so like
Yeah. Look, with most parents, they if I'm explaining dopamine burnout to them, they will connect that with their kids' behaviors, the negative
Okay.
behaviors. That's the quickest answer for you, is
Yeah,
that they'll be
yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh, he's raging all the time or whatever. And so, for example, that's an interesting topic. So gamer rage is actually it's actually related to our intrinsic needs. So
Mm,
it comes down to competence.
mm,
Um, and if you seek competence and you expect competence because you've got whatever 500 hours of Fortnite this year under your belt and you think you're really good, but then you don't meet those expectations for
mhm,
whatever reason, some guy
mhm.
beats you or lag or some externalization or excuse or whatever, then you're going to get frustrated, and frustration can lead to aggression, right? And that aggression might be chucking a controller, banging a table, or
Yeah.
worse. But it comes from unmet needs of competence when you expected it. If it's the first time you ever played Fortnite or any FPS game, the controls are weird, and you're like, "Oh my god, this is amazing," but I don't know what I'm doing. And then you die. You'd be like, "Well, that tracks. That makes sense." You know, you're not going to get frustrated from that. So it's only when you expect competence and don't feel it. It's no different as John McEnroe getting a call or against him in tennis at the professional level and smashing his racket if it didn't go his way or
Yeah.
something like that. You know what I mean? Like it's expectations of competence not being met.
Gotcha.
So they look at behaviors, and if they see them unwilling it's difficult to transition away from video games and difficult to get them involved in other things. So one of the biggest things and most unhealthy things and stories that I got around COVID was, oh, I used to play soccer 3 times a week. COVID hit. Now he plays Fortnite every day. And now that COVID's lockdowns are over, he won't go back into soccer. Like that's problematic,
Mm,
because now he's not accessing the health benefits that he used to get. So unless he's going to the gym to offset that, then all of a sudden, he's becoming physically unhealthy, which we shouldn't
mm,
overlook in this
okay.
situation. It's part of the mix. Whereas on the flip side, if I was coaching a Fortnite player, then we would be in the gym a number of times a week to help them with their cognitive performance. And it's a completely different lens, but it's going to get the same results, if that makes sense. So that's where the some of the big connectors are
Having
between
having
esports
that
performance and
having that coach or facilitator or adult in the room to help with that balance. That's that's key. Is in what you just said at the very end. Like, okay, if I'm the adult in the room, the coach or the facilitator, and I'm showing you, okay, well, we're gonna do this, but we're also gonna do this over here to show you
mm,
how to have that balance. Um,
yeah,
yeah, I understand that 100%. Um, and that leads
that's
into,
why
go ahead.
I was going to say that's why I'm excited about like the videos that we're making right now, because it's the pro players telling you there's a difference between training and playing. You got to make sure you're not burning out. You got to make sure your mindset is right on game day. You got to build the culture, like all these things. But it's not me; it's them talking about it. And I think that if if the role modeling of professional gamers for a while now has been the grind is how I got to this place. You just need to grind, right? They wear it like a badge of honor, right? If that is the role modeling, I don't see parents buying in and will be stuck. If the role
Mm,
modeling from professionals is actually the players at the top level, and it's only the top level, which kind of sucks, which is why I want to bring it earlier. Get that performance coaching side of things. They learn the mental game. They learn the value of competition. They learn how to optimize their brains. They train. They breath work, meditation, all these things. And then the people who are the most successful say, actually, all the differences came when we combined our micro skills, our macro skills, and our mental skills together.
mm,
If the kids at the impressionable kids who are looking up to those players hear that, that's the change we need. And then
yeah,
if parents administrators see that, they're like, yeah, that now I'm not as worried. Like that's the
absolutely.
goal. That's the goal.
Absolutely. And so that leads into the fourth question. We talked about behind the scenes, and you've led up to it, like an add, don't subtract.
Mhm.
and you talk about that how it's a method that offers practical ways to shift habits. How can families and educators use this? And we touched on it just now. How can families and educators use it to support the healthy gaming and esports routines?
Mm. So, what I was mentioning before, if you understand your typification, you understand what you're leaning into when you're playing games. Like, what are you relying on it to try and what bucket are you trying to fill
Mhm.
through gaming? And with esports in particular, it's pretty much all the time. It's going to be CRA because it's competition. And if it's competition, then there's going to be activities in real life that also meet that CRA sort of typification.
Right.
Excuse me. And so parents, the job is to find a competing interest, right? So if you're able to find a competing interest, then you don't just need games to be able to meet that need. And that was the reason why they were playing, is to meet a need. So I could share my screen and show you the tool if you like.
Yeah, sure. Let me switch my camera. Yeah, go ahead and
All right, let me
share away.
think that does it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And people can see
So
it now.
this is in the online courses. It's in all of them, I think. It's definitely in the parent course and the student course that teachers can deliver or parents can deliver, which is like gamers. It's gamer facing language for the student course, but
Mhm.
essentially, as we were saying, like you can filter and typified activities. So you wouldn't be
So
surprised in the
cool.
CRA bucket to see go karting or athletics or badminton or basketball. Like these are just sports, but it's more than that. It's, there's like, at least in Australia, life saving is like, as a sport on the beach, life saving is very, very fitness based sport, for example, very competitive. Laser tag. There's all sorts of activities that fit what esports are. But then if you're a Minecraft player, then ACR, then you might be interested in, animation, 3D printing, learning to DJ, Lego building. Like
It's
these are
awesome.
all things. And we've got a lot of feedback that, if someone identifies as an ACR, even like a researcher I was speaking to recently, and I popped up this for him, and he was like, "Yep, I do a bunch of these already. This is me. This is what I do." And so the tool's purpose is to give you a place, like to take the guesswork out of it.
Mhm.
So it's to prevent a mismatch. If someone's playing Fortnite because they want to hang with their friends, they don't care what their rank is. That's where their friends are. They would
Right.
rather go do something with them in real life, but they're always online, so they meet them online. And they might be an RAC player they would rather go to the beach with their friends and go to the city, go have dinner, go to a concert, something like that. So putting them into archery under CAR is a mismatch. It doesn't mean it's never going to be a good option. It's just not the first place I'm going to look. But if archery, for
Mm,
example, was a place you wanted to look, you could click on it and it's going to look for it on Google near you. So it doesn't matter if you're in the US or Australia or whatever. And it's going to find on the map and in the listing